What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Building Code. I'm Charlie Birtwhistle.
And I'm Courtney Matern.
Courtney, how the heck are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're just finished up the Builder Show. We just got back from Las Vegas. How are you feeling?
I'm also feeling great. Those are the only two options I give myself every day, is either good or great, and today's a great day.
You only give yourself two choices?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to hack that. I'm going to steal that idea. I feel like really proud of myself coming back from the Builder Show and having any energy or life.
Yeah.
A lot of people came back with colds or flus.
Yeah. I'm rejuvenized. I was doing filming a little recap video yesterday, and I said that the building show is always the most inspirational and motivational thing I attend for work, probably in my life, actually, all year. It's just so cool to be surrounded by literally hundreds of thousands of people that are like-minded, and they're wanting to get better, and they're trying to learn. The booth is buzzing. The energy's high. It's just fantastic. I came back ready to go, ready to make Buildertrend better and make the world a better place.
How many people were like, it's Charlie from the podcast?
One.
One?
But that's one more than, anybody else in the booth got. So.
Were you happy we finally let you out of the building?
Exactly. And the person that recognized me also asked to take a picture with me. And people saw him ask to take a picture with me. So I got some kind of credibility here around the office.
I'm impressed. Well, I'm glad we're glad to be back in the studio, but until next time we get to see all of our customers in person. That's always the best part.
Exactly. And we have a fantastic guest who I actually got to meet at the Builder Show. People that have been listening for a long time know that I do zero of the actual work on the podcast. I just show up and talk. So I don't know who our guests are going to be. I guess I could look into my calendar and see. But this guy came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to be on the Building Code next week. I was like, no way. And today is the day, the aforementioned day, that he is on the Building Code. So Courtney, who do we got today?
Yeah, we have Cameron Meredith. He's a partner and director at ADU West. I have a small obsession with ADUs. I think you share the same obsession, Charlie. So anytime we can get to talk about accessory dwelling units, we will do it. He is out of Seal Beach, California, and it's really interesting with ADUs and is how different the building process is from region to region, whether it's permitting or city laws or challenges of like being by the ocean or digging into rock. So I'm excited to talk to him about things that have happened in California where they've had a huge boom in ADUs, some of the challenges that he's had, and what trends he's looking forward to in the future.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, let's get him in here. Hey, Cameron, welcome to the Building Code. How's it going today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you. Appreciate you making the time to join us today. For our listeners out there, we always like to start with just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you are, where you came from, and how you got into construction.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Southern California. I grew up in Huntington Beach. Funny enough, I went to college out at the University of Nebraska. I know you guys are out in Omaha, so I have a bunch of friends and close acquaintances still out there. But after college, I did study business management. Like a lot of college kids, I really didn't know what to do after. So I was always in sales. Started at Solar City selling solar panels. After that, did some management at a Sears. And then after that, I got my real estate license. And while I got my real estate license, I did that for about 5 years. And I was doing flips and some larger remodels with a group that I liked. And I figured that, hey, I was pretty good at selling some of these renovation remodel jobs. So I formed a team. My partner was they're still my partners today, but one of them is an architectural designer. His brother's a structural engineer and GC. So we pretty much formed this group. We were doing large remodels, custom homes. And then in 2020, we saw the laws change for ADUs. And that's when we really focused on taking our design build concept and just focusing really on ADUs, since it's such a big thing here in California.
Love that. I don't want to get off track because we could spend the entire 30 minutes on this, but I am the biggest Nebraska football fan in the entire world. I've had season tickets my entire life. So some other time we can grab a drink and chop it up about your time in Lincoln.
For sure. And I'll come out there for a game, so we'll meet up.
Oh, love that. Yeah. Goal for having you on today is talk a little bit more about ADUs. I know they're big on the West Coast and in California specifically, but for our listeners across the nation, quick overview, ADU 101.
Yeah, so not to get into too much detail, these laws were enacted, like I mentioned, in 2020. The real reason is to provide more housing. Obviously, here in California, not only this state, but many other states, you're seeing ADU laws being implemented. So what exactly is an ADU for just basic, I guess, explanation? It is a second or third living facility with a kitchen and bath. So it has to have a kitchen, it has to have a bathroom. Now, here in California, people are converting their existing garages, whether it's detached or attached, and they're also building them out of the backyard. And a lot of the regulations that were passed in 2020 and thereafter just makes it a lot easier for people to convert either their garage or, like I mentioned, build in their backyard. And really, the whole concept of this, like I said, is it's really hard to just, rezone property and basically go through that whole process. So throughout the state, when they were passing these bills, they said, hey, look, everybody has a backyard. A lot of these tracks in 1950s, 1960s have detached garages. So it made perfect sense to convert some of these and pass these bills to allow people to build more housing in their backyard. And just to not get into too much off track here, but interesting enough, I find it really interesting. 80 to 90% of the ADUs we do for single family homes, because we work with a lot of investors too, but most of those are actually a family member moving back. So it's either a young adult, right? It's starter home in California is $1 million. It's crazy. So it's either a young adult or it's a elder moving back with their family. So I find that really rewarding, and a lot of listeners might find that shocking because a lot of people, at least here, think they're going to be rentals and there's going to be more cars in the neighborhood, which actually a lot of those families already live in that property, which I find interesting.
We've talked ADUs on the building code before. Whitney from Snap ADU has been on. I think she's up in the Northwest. What's really interesting to me is just region by region because the laws and the regulations are different. And if you know me, I love a good stat. So
Here we go.
looking at the stats from California, between 2016 and 2022, California saw a 15,000% increase in ADU permits, totaling almost 84,000 units. By 2024, California had one ADU for every 441 residents. What has it been like in the market there? And did you feel like you came on early to the rise of ADUs? Did the opportunity was it screaming in your face, or was it as evident?
It really was. I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I was one of the early adopters of like switching our company to just specialize in ADUs. And there's a lot of good ones. There's also a lot of bad ones, So it's a mix, just like anything. But really, kind of how I started my journey in this is I really understood those laws. And being in real estate, I made a custom PowerPoint specific to the laws and whatnot. So I got a lot of business just educating, realtor groups or different investors. I'd speak in front of rooms of 50 to 100 people and just basically educate them on ADUs. And from that point, I've kind of guided myself as the expert in the local area, which is nice. But yes, I've seen this thing explode ever since 2020, because that's when really these laws changed in favor as far as lifting regulation. And every single year, I just see more and more and more demand for these ADUs. Because, like I said, the biggest problem is not a lot of people can afford $1 million starter home. And right now, 6, 7%, it just doesn't make sense. And a lot of those people aren't selling their homes because they don't want to go into a 7% rate. So I just think it's both the real estate climate here and then the laws in favor and people realizing. Because here's the thing, you can build a garage conversion for around 160,000, and nowhere in California can you find a property for 160,000. I don't care where you go. So it's really kind of, I guess, makes sense for this area because of how crazy the housing is. And, on that, I did a presentation the other day. I'm seeing ADU laws being implemented throughout the country. I think even Lincoln, last time I was there, is implementing some ADU stuff as well as Omaha. So no matter where there's bigger cities, there's density problems. And I think the West Coast, as far as Oregon, Washington, California, I know Texas is doing a lot. I think a lot of cities are looking at these laws and implementing them in their cities as well.
Yeah, that was you beat me to my question there. I was getting ready to ask if you knew what laws look like in
Yeah,
Omaha.
no, like, is it time? Can I build an ADU?
Yeah, my dad.
You know what? I don't know the specifics of it, but I did read an article the other that they are starting to implement some sort of laws.
It
So if
makes
you
a
go on,
ton
I'm
of
sure if you go
sense.
on the Omaha City website, there'll be some specifics there for that.
The investment makes sense for homeowners, especially because, like you said, the cost, accessibility, and attainability of starter homes in bigger cities. It's an issue for families, of course. But what is the business appeal too for companies like yours working in construction? How has it made business sense?
Well, it makes business sense in the fact that there's so much work. Rather than because the demographic, let's say the Midwest, there might be a lot of spec home builders or custom home builders, right? Out here, there's just not enough land, so it's either remodels with existing property or ADUs. And like I said, we have, as far as our business goes, we have a pretty good mix as far as investor versus homeowner. We'll always work with homeowners. I think investors are a little bit easier. The homeowners there all the time, they might change their mind on stuff, which is okay. But as far as us, we like working with investors. And I think one of the biggest, things that was implemented in the last year, which I know you guys were going to touch on, but there's a huge multifamily law that was passed in 2025, starting this year. And you're now allowed to build up to 8 ADUs on your multifamily property. Now, I know we don't have time. I'm not going to get into specifics of this, but that is a huge opportunity for operators and owners that own multifamily properties. So, throughout the state, we're seeing a huge influx in demand for not only single family, but multifamily as well to provide more housing.
That's super interesting. I love talking. I mean, construction has been around forever, and everyone does things a little differently. So we keep things new for sure. But being on the forefront of kind of an emerging market like this is always really exciting. I'm sure for you, but even just for me right now talking to you is cool. It with everything as great as it sounds, I'd love to hear the other side of the coin. What are some of the challenges that comes with building ADUs as opposed to kind of the standard home build or remodel that you would be doing otherwise?
Well, it's the same process. So whether we're building an ADU or we're building a 4,000 square foot custom home, the same inspections, the same submittal processes. Now, you're going to have a little bit easier in the planning portion since it's a little bit different as far as regulation goes there. So a little bit easier in the planning, but the building will be the same as far as the processes and stuff like that. I will say one thing that at least I'm speaking for my local area can get better at is there is a lot of red tape still, and a lot of it's not. I like a lot of people like to blame the cities, which some cities are better than others, but I get it. They don't want to be sued. The problem is they got many different departments, and a lot of those people don't talk to each other. So you're submitting plans, and this really should take less than a month, maybe a couple weeks to submit an ADU. But what happens is, depending on your jurisdiction, you got to go to Public Works, then you're transferred over here, then you're transferred over here. And a lot of those people don't talk with one another. So, again, depending on the city, some are more difficult than others. I think there really needs to be a change in streamlining this. And trust me, a lot of these bills that are passed in California tries to streamline a lot of that, but there's still a lot of ways to go there. And I think, if we were able to just bring this in one or two departments, it should just be planning and building instead of going to Public Works and this and that. It just really slows down the project and the approval process, which again, I'm hoping that we can make this better. One thing I've been seeing online on Twitter or X, those fires that just happened in the Palisades and El Tadena. Actually, one of our projects burned down over there. It was finished. So, interesting enough, if you look online, a lot of those people are complaining about the same stuff. You got to go to 20 different departments. This person has to sign off. So I think if we were able to figure that out, it'd really help with the building and it really helps speed things up. But it's going to be a work in progress.
What improvements have you seen in the last few years? Like what wins have you had as someone who is, building several ADUs at a time?
Well, it might sound like a Buildertrend ad, but I had this conversation the other day. I've really changed our complete operations and systems on how we operate, and I couldn't do it without a good software like Buildertrend. I've pretty much dived all in from cost coding to everything, and I'm still learning every day. But we started with the daily logs, the pictures. It was more level one. But I've fully invested not only myself but training my crew because I think that's probably one of the most important parts is training everybody you work with on Buildertrend as well. And I think we're at that point where it's starting to really come together. But there's no way. I mean, we do anywhere from 20 to 30 jobs a year. There's absolutely no way I could do that without proper software and without proper systems in place to help me with that amount of work.
I love hearing that it gives you a leg up to you're facing maybe other systems and processes that are inefficient, but you found your own ways to become as efficient as possible on your end.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about the ADU handbook changes for 2025. What major updates would you recommend other builders are staying on top of if they're interested in getting involved in ADUs?
For sure. So a couple big bills. The one that I mentioned is about the multifamily is called SB 1211, and you're allowed to build up to eight ADUs if you have enough room in your on your property. So not to get into too much specifics, but you can't build more than your existing count. So if you have 2 units, you're allowed 2 ADUs. If you have 4, you're allowed 4. Again, you can't go higher than 8. But what that really does is create a lot of more rental properties for some of these owners. As I mentioned, they don't have to demo anything on the lot. A lot of these people have open space to build those. Another one is an ADU amnesty program. I believe that's AB 2533. And that makes it a lot easier for ADUs built before January 1st, 2020 to get those up to code or up to date and get them legalized. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics of that. I could talk about that for a while. Another big one is SB 1077. That's the coastal zone ADU guidance. For those of you in the Midwest, we have something called a coastal commission, which is just another bureaucracy that you have to go through when you're near the water. This simplifies basically the requirements for ADUs and junior ADUs. We did one. Our office is here in Seal Beach. We just did one where it was in Coastal Commission, and it took us about a year just to pass Coastal Commission. So
Wow.
that's kind of the stuff I'm talking about. They're trying to make it a little bit easier, so that should help out. And then the other one that we've actually kind of piggybacked off of is AB 1332, which is pre-approved ADU plans. Each city has to offer a streamlined set of plans. So right now we have 4 plans in the city of Costa Mesa being approved. I got 2 plans in the city of Downey being approved, and I just met with the city of Buena Park to try to get our plans approved. So that's kind of my goal this year, is getting our plans approved in different cities throughout Southern California. A lot different than Omaha. We probably have 90 cities within, this general LA greater area. So it's going to be quite a mission to go to every city, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I would say those are probably the 3 biggest bills that were passed that's going to help the production for ADUs.
That's super interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned the plans because that's a really natural segue to my next question here. I'm on the side here. I'm just scrolling through your website right now, and the different types of where the ADU can go with the garage conversion, the standalone basement or attic, or over the garage. Are you doing all of those right now currently? Like, are there plans for each of those? And if so, what are some of the kind of unique challenges that come with? I would imagine a garage conversion is very different than a standalone unit.
100%. So we do offer, regardless of whether they're improved in cities or not, we have a template of 10 pre-engineered plans. Those are only work with freestanding structures because anytime we do a garage, it's existing conditions we have to work around. So our purpose was to offer these 10 plans to these cities. And like I said, as long as you're not on a hillside and it's a pretty normal lot as far as flat, most of these plans will pretty much work anywhere, throughout the state. So that's kind of our goal, is to make it easier for people. Now, with garage conversions, like I said, you have different conditions, so it's hard. You can't really have a set of plans. The one that we really don't see a lot of out here is the basements or the attics. Number one, attics, you have to have a certain height space, so that becomes an issue. But funny enough, we're about to complete one in Highland Park, which is like East LA, really hilly area, and that's almost like a tiered structure with a basement. So that would be our first ADU basement that we'll do. And honestly, I don't see much of those, so it might be our last. But other than that, all the other ones are pretty common. I would say the garage conversion is the most common just due to the cost being the most cost effective. And then the 2-story ADU ends up being the most costly. So we don't see a lot of those. It's usually garage conversion or freestanding.
I think it's
Yeah.
really interesting all the regional differences and how different it
Hmm.
is building in
That's what
different
I was
states.
thinking too.
Whether by, I think this is an interesting conversation. At the beginning of the year, we talked to the president of NAHB and just they lobby the government at many levels, and that's why it's important to stay in tune with your local laws and how it affects your business. What changes would you like to see in the future to make things even better? I know you talked about maybe easier permitting, easier, fewer steps to go through on, on that end. But moving forward, like, what is your ideal state?
Yeah, honestly, I think it all comes down to making it easier to permit. I think that's really the bottleneck for this. And like I said, there's some cities that are better than others, but I think if we can really streamline this and just break it down to where we don't have to go to, all these different departments to get sign-offs. And like I said, I get it, cities get sued all the time and they're trying to protect themselves. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to figure out where this would work. But I would say, as far as, and most builders will tell you this in California, that cutting a little bit of the red tape and regulation is going to really help with housing production and then help with our housing inventory. So I would say that's definitely probably top of all the issues here in California.
As more builders jump on this trend of building ADUs, and as someone who is early on the forefront and cares about excellence, what are some things like quality wise that you would urge all builders to keep in mind when building these ADUs? Because I think when they first started coming on the scene, it's like, oh, you're just building an Airbnb or an income
Right.
property, but it's important to build lasting structures. What's top of mind for you as far as quality and making sure that you're setting your builds apart?
Yeah, so the quality, so we follow Title 24, so which is a California compliant. So the quality is always good. We always leave number one, the stucco or siding has to match the front. Same with the roof. So whatever the front house is, we got to match the back. Now, interior, we kind of leave it up to the client. We have a spreadsheet of about 25 selection items. We budget per line item, and they select those. Now, what I will say is I'm a firm believer in, because we do design build, and I think that's one of our strengths because we can kind of foresee stuff in the build and in the design as well. And I think with ADUs, one thing to think about is these spaces are very small. So you're not going to have a dining table, right? So I think it's very important to plan either a peninsula that comes out with tabletop seating, or an island if you can fit it within there. So it's little things like this, noting where the closets go, maybe putting your washer and dryer in a closet, stuff like that. Also exterior, you might want a porch outside. California has great weather. You might want to put chairs out there. So I think just overall thinking about, number one, why are you building the ADU? That's a big question for me, right? Are you building it for your family member? Is grandma moving in? Or are you going to use this as a midterm rental for traveling nurses, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of these whys kind of help us guide them on, hey, here's what I recommend, here's what I think you should do, et cetera. Sorry, my light just turned off. So
You're
yeah.
sitting too still.
But yeah, the design portion is huge for these, and we do a big part of that as well.
I'm obsessed.
I know. I want an ADU so bad. I think for a while, yeah, like to your point, I don't think it was allowed in Omaha, but I think rules have changed. Like
Mhm.
to the point of I've seen other builders, who are doing design build in more wide open spaces like Meg Billings in Idaho. Like you can build a brand new house that has the granny suite. But when you're in a city, like you said, in California, where it's 90 cities in such a small area, like how do you build a home that makes sense? And then it's so reassuring to hear about we have quality builders using Buildertrend and be
Yeah.
able to talk to builders like you who are doing it right and are being intentional and using your great skill set and business sense to build homes that are going to last for whoever's going to be staying in them is really reassuring that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and it's just always cool to hear about the innovative solutions that people are coming up with, and people like you, Cameron, are facilitating to solve the housing crisis and make sure people have places to live and affordable places to live. I always think it's pretty inspiring.
For sure. And one thing too, just to touch on, like I went to the builder convention. I met you there, Charlie, a couple other team members, which was great. But I'm real interested in staying on top of new products and just innovation and what's going on. So I like going to that show. But really, for me, I think the future, we're going to see a lot more modular type structures. So, I would say within the next 10 years, a lot of these builds are going to be modular. So I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve there as well and work with some modular companies just to at least offer that as another option for us.
Were there some booths out at the show?
There is a bunch. Yeah, we went outside. I'm actually an authorized boxable dealer, so I talked to them,
Nice.
and then I went around and talked to a couple other people. I had a networking event here the other day in California, and I just met a guy that does, I forgot the name of the company, but they do 3D printed homes, and those are really cool. They do a lot of glamping. They do a lot of government contracts for like unhoused and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But like I mentioned, I'm just looking at all this stuff and where this is going. And I really do think that modular is going to be a huge thing here in the future.
People can say they heard it here first from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There we go.
definitely.
Yeah.
We need a prediction to come true on the podcast. I just saw the other day they reposted a recording from before the Super Bowl where we predicted the Chiefs winning. So that made me.
No.
Actually, I don't think I did. I think it was our guest.
Well, we
Wipe
had
my
a
name
Kansas
for that.
City guest on, so it
I know. I kind of had to.
kind of had to.
Stuck him in a hard place there.
Is that your pro team?
Most people in Omaha, yeah, not necessarily me. I'm a fan of the game, fan of the Shield.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of any sport team that has concession stands. That's,
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same here.
Most of them.
I'm here for the snacks. That was my fantasy team name.
Love that. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we're getting close to time here, so need to wrap things up. Any kind of closing remarks from you before we let you go?
Yeah, no, I just want to let you guys know, our team loves Buildertrend. Like I said, we've really implemented it to the full extent. I'm sure there's more we can do with it, but we've been really happy. You guys have been great. The support team's awesome. And yeah, anytime, you guys want me to come on again, I'd be glad to share my knowledge, maybe in a year or two, just to see how things are
There we
going
go.
and
Yeah.
just a little update.
When you come out to the Husker game, and then you can also check out.
We will
Charlie
do a
and-
live recording
Yeah.
at a Husker tailgate
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
That'd be
we'll come. I'll definitely come to the Buildertrend, office there and come see you guys, and maybe we'll go tailgate and stuff.
for sure. Well, like I
Nice.
said, definitely let me know when you're coming down because I'll be at every game. So that'd be awesome to meet you again.
Perfect. Awesome. Well,
Cool.
thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much, Cameron. Have a great day.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Well, Courtney, we just heard from Cameron Meredith at ADU West. Fantastic interview, as expected. What did you think?
I loved it. And ADUs aside, while we know we would both love to nerd out more about whether or not we can put one in our backyard. I think this episode was a good example of how the cream always rises to the top, about how builders who are, looking ahead at things or willing to be innovative or go outside of their comfort zone are always going to excel. Cameron shared so many examples of all the opportunity there is in California for builders who are willing to maybe make changes to their business processes or become more efficient and get on board the ADU train, but also how it doesn't stop there. Like, he's seen a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity, but he's already looking to how can he continue to be efficient? How can he continue to take advantage of city ordinances changing or improving permitting processes? Like, he's always looking ahead because he's willing to know that he can always get better. And I think that's also what just sets Buildertrend builders apart
Yeah.
in general, is that they're always getting better. And that benefits all of us. It benefits their businesses, but it benefits the homeowners who are looking for, building onto their property or having grandma come live with them or making some extra income. They're making it better for everyone because they're willing to take a leap and do better.
Be better.
Be better.
There is a better way. And I am just very, very thankful to get to be a small part of that.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
What was your biggest takeaway from the episode?
Courtney, my biggest takeaway was how much you love stats. And you dropped some big ones in there. 15,000% growth from 2016 to 2022. 1 out of every 400 residents having an ADU. This wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
5 years. What time of year is it now? 6, 7 years ago. And it's just cool to see how quickly the industry can adapt to changing rates, to changing economics, to changing housing, needs. And it's just, when there's a problem, smart people figure out a solution to the problem, and you get things like ADUs.
That is really reassuring too. Like you mentioned, like the problem with a housing shortage or accessibility or affordability of homes. Like people always out there think, someone else is going to come in and fix it, or we're waiting for the superhero, or we're waiting for like the federal government to fix it.
Superhero is me all along.
But it's the solutions can be much more micro. It can be a business owner seeing an opportunity and making a change. It can be one city making the change that, hey, yeah, you can have an ADU in your property so that your retiring grandma can come live with you. So change is happening all around, and everybody has the power to make a difference and solve some of these big problems the industry is facing. So
be the change you want to be in the world.
Yeah, right. We're so inspiring today.
I know. Well, you were. I was just kind of mumbling over my words the entire here. So glad you took the lead there. Buildertrend needs to get some ADUs just out in the parking lot. Then I could just live
great.
here.
Quiet workspaces.
I was thinking just live there, walk to the office.
You would. You already wake up at 3 a.m. You might as well just live here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that about does it.
Yeah. Until next time, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Email us. Tell us what you're liking. Follow us on TikTok.
I'm really pushing for comments right now. I think that's every month I'm going to push for something a little bit differently. March is the month of comments. So if you see us on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or anywhere else,
just say hi so that we don't have like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
We know that you see us, or tell us what you like. Just a hello would be great too.
Yeah, or tell us we are awful.
Yeah, tell us if you don't like what you see.
Lovers are going to love, haters are going to hate. I'm looking for something kind of right in the middle.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it. I'm Charlie Burtwhistle.
I'm Courtney Matern.
Peace.